Welcome to another episode of Mutual Funds Sahi Hai presents Smart Nivesh, Sahi Nivesh, partnered by Times Network. I'm Kavita Thaplial, and today we are shifting gears to talk about something that's on many of our minds: buying a car. For most of us, buying a car isn't just a financial decision; it's a personal milestone. What's the smartest way to save, invest, or even borrow for this big-ticket purchase? We have two incredible experts with us today to guide us through this exciting journey. In the studio, we have Renuka Kriplani, our car expert, and Lovaii Navlakhi, a seasoned financial expert, joining us virtually. Together, they'll help us understand that buying a car isn't just a purchase, it's a key investment, and how should you plan for it? All right, Lovaii and Renuka, thank you so much for joining in for this very important discussion. And Lovaii, let me begin with you because, let's understand the planning aspect of this particular goal. You know, it's a personal milestone for a lot of people. It's a very important financial goal, an aspirational goal for a few also. So how do we weigh the pros and cons of actually owning your own vehicle?
Thank you for having me. I think the most important thing is to understand what is the purpose of that vehicle. You know, is it something that is going to be utilitarian, or is it something which I want to show off among my friends and family and then say, you know, I've got this jazzy bike or a brand new car with me. So I think first we have to understand what the purpose is. And then obviously, then you look at the money situation. Now, invariably, the planning for this, sometimes I think it's not like a phone where you go into a mall and see a new gadget and pick it up. There is a bit of planning that you probably do for buying a two-wheeler or a car. So in which case, you already know what is the type of budgets, what type of loans are available, how much money you'll have to put aside. And I think those are, I would say, the first steps.
One really needs to get the basics right. And when we are talking about basics, buying a car or renting a car, you know, we are living in times where rent a car kind of services are really available at very reasonable and affordable prices. So how can one decide, basis on the fundamentals that one needs to get right for this particular financial goal, how do we decide that we should be buying a car or renting a car?
So I think it depends on your usage, really. You know, if you're someone that is happy to use public transport in general scale, you don't really need a vehicle. Maybe you're a single person. Yeah. You don't have a family. It's just you. You know, it may not be fit for your purpose to actually have the full expense of owning a car, maintaining a car. You have to pay for parking. You have to pay for cleaning. You have to pay for fuel. So there are expenses that you have to pay for insurance. So it adds up, you know, on a yearly. It's not just that buy of a car. So I think you need to take that decision and decide how fit for my purpose is it. You really have to decide what your purpose is. If you're a family person, it probably makes more sense to buy the car because then there's a lot more usage and a lot of different kind of usage. So I think like he said, you have to really decide in your mind, what your purpose is and what your goal is to buy that car.
And when we're talking about buying a car, should it be, can it be a second hand? On what criteria, parameters should one decide that?
There's pros and cons to buying a second-hand car. So I think, yes, when you buy a second-hand car, you have to very often remember that it's not under warranty. These cars have been used, how good a car you get, how much mileage it's done. So, maintenance can actually be more on a second-hand car. So you have to really take a good decision when you buy a second-hand car. In that sense, it's not bad buying a second-hand car. Maybe it's your first car and you're trying to get used to it. You get something that's a lot cheaper.
Okay, the first car can be a second-hand car then, maybe.
Yes.
You just want to get a hang of it, just see how you feel driving, maybe the distance, etc.
Get comfortable, get a small car, get easy with it, and buy something that you're not planning to keep very long term, right?
Okay.
If you're planning to keep a car long term, it's just better to go in for a new car, spend that little bit more because your car's under warranty, it's easier to maintain, you'll have less hassles with it, you know how the car has been used or not used because you're doing it yourself.
So, Lovaii, what do you think about it? And also, what should be the definition of long term when we are talking about buying a car? Because people want to upgrade their lifestyle, they want to have new models, you know.
Yeah, so I think Renuka mentioned an important piece on lease. So what the lease is doing is that it's not just, I mean, yes, it's equivalent to an EMI getting paid, but the good thing with many leases is that the maintenance is taken care of by the leasing company. So to that extent, you don't have additional costs. You know, this is the fixed amount that I'm going to pay and use the vehicle, and then I'm not stuck with the same vehicle for very long. I can do 3 years, 4 years, 5 years, and then change that vehicle. It's also possibly in some cases a tax advantage if you are getting it from the company, because that sort of reduces your income that's paid off directly by the company. So it's a good tax planning tool that one can use. I think if you're buying your own car, as Renuka said, I suppose there's a difference between old generation and new generation. The old generation like to keep the cars for 6, 8, 10 years, and even longer. But the newer lot will say, oh, there is this new vehicle, new variant that you want to shift to. So I think you have to keep that in mind, saying what is the cost of that car and what is the cost of replacement of the car when you're planning your finances. Because once you get hooked on to changing a vehicle, say every 2 years or 3 years, it's going to be very difficult for you to say, oh, now this one I am a little tight on my money. I have some other family goals. Let me extend this car for 5, 6 years. That's, from a behavior standpoint, I find that it's very difficult to do that. So keep that in mind before you get on that journey.
I think, with what he's saying is you have to decide which bracket, which segment you're in, what kind of car you're looking at. And a lot of companies now offer you a buyback. After 3 years, they will give you the buyback. So you decide that I'm going in for this much EMI. I have budgeted and I've put aside this much money for my car every month. So all they do is they take back the car, you go and you get another model. I mean, everybody's doing it from a Maruti to a Mercedes. So I think there are options now available that weren't before. So it's not like you have to sell your car in the market, then, think, oh, I have to make a new down payment. So there are newer and newer ways of buying cars these days.
Right. So, so buyback is one option. But apart from that, how do you make the most of it? Like, when do you buy the car? I mean, you look for offers, you look for packages, you wait during that period of time?
Oh, yes. I think there are times of years to buy a car.
Exactly,
If you decide to buy a car in December, you probably get it this month a lot cheaper because the rollover to a next year manufacturer, date of manufacture means your resale will be better. So you decide. Festive season, you get a lot of discounts. When a model is running out and the new model is coming in, that's the time to look for a car because you get a lot of discounts on the older variant. So there are times to particularly look for a car and hunt for a good deal on a car.
What are people buying actually now, these days?
People are buying cars like crazy. They're buying just about everything.
What kind of model?
But I think luxury cars are selling better than they ever had. Yeah, so I think people are seeing a lot of movement in the luxury segment. Even EVs for that matter, where, the curve has kind of flattened in the regular segment, the luxury segment is still selling.
So, Lovaii, now how do we plan? How can you help us understand that mutual funds can really help you build a corpus for a vehicle that you want to buy?
Yeah, so I think mutual funds are a very good vehicle for investments for future goals. I think for any goal, whether it is a car, house, whatever that you're sort of seeking to buy, it's a good idea to, if you can plan as much in advance, the better it is, because I can then park aside money which I can, invest with longer term time horizon and therefore get better return. But typically, the approach is that as you're approaching the goal, so let's say I've decided to buy the car in June of 25 or in October of 25, then probably 3-6 months at least before that, I will start reducing my exposure to equity so that I'm not sort of forced to sell at a time when the market is not good, or I'm not able to take care of the festive offer that is available on the car. So I think that is typically the way to do it. And there are a variety of funds that are available. So you can, if you have a 3-year time horizon before you're going to buy, that money can go into a diversified equity fund. If it's say 1 to 3 years, maybe you can do hybrid funds or balanced advantage type of funds. And if it is less than a year, then you start getting into fixed income type of product. Now in fixed income, of course, there's no tax advantage that is there. So people tend to today look at arbitrage funds. If you have a 6 to 9 month horizon, or sorry, 3 to 9 month horizon, and those arbitrage funds are giving us, a good 7% plus type of return. So you are able to at least get better than your savings rate, and you're taxed only at equity taxation.
How much of an advanced planning can we do? Because looking at the new models launching every 6 months, 3 to 5 years, how do you come to the actual figure that you want to buy a car worth, 20 lakhs?
Prices have risen in the last 3 years.
Yeah.
So, you'd probably have set a goal which is unachievable in 3 years.
Yeah.
So my point is, I think a year would be the max I would go to look at, say, okay, next year I want to buy a car, and maybe plan for that 1 year ahead. I think that's the max I would give someone to say, okay, I'm putting aside money or whatever.
So in 1 year's time, Lovaii, then how do we do it? Or, we just give 1 year to finalize the model and maybe start putting out money separately that, okay, in future, maybe few years down the line, I want to buy a car. Can we do that?
Probably is different from purchase of first car versus purchase of next car. So what the model that I was suggesting will work for the second car onwards, where you know that in 3 years' time, you're going to replace and you need to top up some amount. Then as you get closer to the date, you start using the short-term funds. The first time, invariably, it's sort of driven by a need, or it is impulsive. And at that stage, it's very difficult to plan how you're going to use the money. So if I've got to buy the car within a short period of time, so let's say within a 1 year period, then typically we will not suggest to take any sort of equity or market exposure. You will tend to stick to, short-term funds or medium-term funds. The problem with some of those, though, is there is no tax advantage. So it gets added to income, the returns that you make. So in the current market situation, people tend to prefer arbitrage funds because the tax rate is actually, the equity fund rate. So you're taxed only at 20%, even if it's short-term. And you're getting something like a 7% return. So it's not that you're going to make a lot of money. Invariably, you have to put in the amount that you're going to keep aside as your down payment if you're going to take a loan for that vehicle, if you're going to purchase it in the short term. In the short term, I think, Renuka, you would probably have a better idea about which vehicle, therefore what's the cost, what sort of deals are available, all of that. And I think to the point that you were making earlier about buying the car in festive season, also sometimes the financial market plays a role, because you suddenly find deals, that here is 0 EMI and stuff like that, and you get tempted to.
All this can be factored in, once if it's a short-term goal. But then even if it is a short-term goal or a long-term goal, apart from budgeting, in terms of features, in terms of after-sales services, what all should be on your checklist?
You have to budget for not only the car, you have to think, am I buying an EV where I don't have a lot of additional expenses? But that also, I would say, makes sense if you're driving a lot. So you have to see your usage pattern. So fuel cost, like he said, maybe a chauffeur cost. A lot of people don't factor in insurance, which is a yearly expense. It's something that you have to renew every year. You don't think about it when you buy the car, because you get a deal, and the guy, the salesperson tells you this is the deal, but when you go to renew your insurance, then there's confusion. But now there's a lot of new methods of insurance, like people are doing insurance where it depends on your usage. So if you're not using the car a lot, you can actually pay as you go depending on your mileage. So there are a lot of factors to consider. And I think what really needs to be done is planning, financial planning. You need to know X is my income. Aspirations are many, but you need to decide what will fit in my budget easily and leave me comfortable so that I'm not stressing at the end of the year that, oh, this is an added expense or that is an added expense. So I think you need to really know income versus expenditure, what can I afford, and then look for something in that segment.
So Lovaii, now how do we plan on taking a loan then? How do we plan a car loan?
So I think today there's a lot of options available, and there are platforms where you can go and choose from where will you get the best sort of loans. So in the digital world, I think that's become a lot easier. You don't only have to go to your bank. Most often the car dealer will also have a tie-up and will have options available to offer you loans as well. So you can evaluate those and then decide whether the EMI that you're going to pay if you're taking a loan is not going to sort of put a lot of pressure on the cash flow for you. And sometimes you look at only the cash flow for the first 2 or 3 months, and you've forgotten that, oh, now there's going to be an extra cost because your child is going to a school where the fees are going up. And that suddenly comes and hits you, and you say, oh no, now I'm really struggling to make the month-on-month sort of expenditure and the cash flow meet. So I think you have to take that into account before you decide. Obviously, many of the loan companies will communicate a flat rate. That's not really the rate of interest that you're paying. So you have to do a calculation and figure out what is the rate of interest. I think today's time, it's probably in the range of about 10 to 11% for a car loan. But if you're taking a second-hand car, it'd be significantly higher, and so on and so forth. So take that into account.
I think, a lot of people, like he said, look at that rate of interest.
Yeah.
They'll compare, and they'll look at only that rate of interest and say, oh, I'm getting 6% or I'm getting 8% or I'm getting 10%, and they go in for the loan based on that.
Right.
But I think you need to do a little bit more research.
Like what?
For example, the one thing that comes off the top of my head, if you're buying a Mercedes, say, you've always had that aspiration. I mean, most boys have that aspiration. I want to own a 3-pointed star. You finally, get that raise at job, you have the down payment, you can own it. You'd probably look at a lot of banks, get a great rate, but you forget that Mercedes has their own plan where they allow you things like this, where he spoke of, like if you have a child, you have an expense, they allow you to pause. So for 2 months, you can actually pause your EMI. So I think research is important. Getting deeper than just the interest rate in what you're paying and looking at what are the facilities this will give me beyond just the interest rate. I think that's there for everything now, whether it's insurance, whether it is your car loan, whether it is the initial buy, like what kind of cover am I getting, what kind of extra am I getting in my cover. You actually have to delve into those details more to save your money overall, as opposed to just that initial. We all go for the initial discount, we all go for the initial interest rate, but I think you have to go a lot deeper than that now to be able to save money long term,
because it's available actually. So
exactly,
make the best out of it.
There's a variety of things available, a lot of them that I discover along the way when I sometimes get to know, which I don't know exist as well. So it's a lot of research and a lot of actually planning when you've zeroed in on your product to know that, okay, how do I get the best deal possible in this?
Asking right question is important. So Lovaii, now since we are talking about festive offers, now to make the most of that, one has to pay within a specific time period. Most of these festive offers are like that. Over here, could you explain us how mutual funds can actually serve to provide liquidity for those payments that might be required, to be made on a short duration?
Yeah, I think the good thing about mutual funds is that the open-ended mutual funds have a very quick exit option, where once you decide that you have to redeem a certain amount, within a day or two, the amount is in your bank account. So that's probably the best things about the liquidity options in mutual funds. Of course, you need to be aware as quickly as possible. If you know when you need the money, then you can plan from which scheme, etc., you want to take out the funds, taking into account taxation and other things like exit loads, etc., that might be there. So you have to look at that, but it's as good as having the money in your bank, except that you can't swipe your debit card and spend it. So
all right. Okay, I do have a lot of questions, but then my time is up for this particular discussion. Thank you so much to you, Renuka and Lovaii, for being there for our viewers, and great insights and a roadmap and guideline for the most aspirational goal that people have of buying and owning their own car. Thank you so much for being on the show today.
Thank you for having us.
Mutual fund investments are subject to market risks. Read all scheme-related documents carefully.